Happy Thursday, everybody. I pray all is well. My name is Michael Gibson, and I'm talking about why I go to church. I'm not going to tell you the part. I'm talking about why I go to church. And today I'm talking about to close the gap. You know, I draw inspiration. I say this all the time from many different places, from many different people. I think it's very important for you to be open to receive from God because I believe God speaks through all different type of people. I believe that God speaks. Uh, he can speak through anything, is what I believe. So sometimes we miss the voice of God because we're looking for some great angel or we're looking for some great move, and God literally could be speaking to you through your kids. God could literally be speaking to you through the radio. The other day I was watching a movie called Bumblebee. He's part of the Transformers, and Bumblebee in the movie lost his voice, and he was no longer able to speak on his own. So what he did was actually change the radio stations, and that's what he used to speak for him. So I remember driving sometimes in my car, and I could be going through something, and I could turn on the radio station, and the song was just what I needed. So I say that because God really, truly speaks through anything when you're open to hear. So there's a passage of scriptures that says, he that have an ear, let him hear. So today, whatever you're catching it now, whether you're catching it later, I just pray that you that have an ear hear what the Spirit is saying. It's not me talking. It's God speaking through me to get a word to you. So I would encourage you to take off your carnal ears and put on your spiritual ears. I just say that every time you go and hear from God, there should be a level of expectation. You receive on your level of expectation. So if you go dive in this word, whether it's from me, whether you dive in the word for yourself, reading it for yourself, if you go not expecting anything, guess what? You will not receive anything. So you truly do receive on the level of your expectations. So today, this afternoon, in the morning, the evening, whenever you catch this video, I hope that you are prepared to receive something from God. Remember, you're not receiving anything from me, receiving nothing from me. My words will fall idly to the ground if your heart and your ears are not ready to receive. Now, I know this is a season where people are wanting to hear a word, but I want to caution you not to have itchy ears, because everybody speaking is not necessarily the voice for you. Not everybody speaking is the voice for you. Not everybody that's saying they are of God are truly of God. Everyone that says they have a word doesn't necessarily mean that that word is for you. So what I would hope in this season, this hour that we're in, that you pray and you ask God for the leading and the direction and for the guidance for the person that you should be listening to, I state this many times that your pastor, your shepherd, they're your physical trainer. So when you go to fly by night eat, so to speak, that person is not always your physical trainer. So what happens is, if today is back day for me, and I'm doing back and I'm doing tries. So I'm doing back and tries today. Well, if your coach and your trainer had you doing back and tries yesterday, you probably won't be able to take full advantage of the regimen that I'm going to give you today, because your muscles will be fatigued. Now, typically speaking, we give our muscles a day of rest in between to allow them the opportunity to build themselves up. So what I'm telling you right now, you have a lot of things going on the internet. So it's an opportunity for you to eat, kind of like if you were at Golden Corral. That's a smorgasbord, that's a buffet, all you can eat. But I want to caution you that you can't eat off of everybody's table. Not everybody is serving what you need. So I in this season, you need to listen to a consistent voice, someone that you've heard speak before on a regular routine basis, or show up consistently. Judge the words that they are saying. See if they are the words of God, and see if they are really ministering to your soul, not to your feelings. Because when you follow God, this is not about your feelings. This will be about your soul. Forgive me for the longer introduction, but I just was feeling in my spirit that this is a time not to eat any meal, because some meals could be poison. Remember that the enemy, the adversary, he's wise and he's cunning. And he's always a big counterfeiter. So he's always looking to mimic the move of God. Right now, they're actually silencing some of the voices that you see because they wasn't prepared for the bandwidth of people that actually would want to get out and give the word. So again, I just want to caution you to watch where you eat, because not every table, not every meal is for you. Not every exercise regimen is good for you at the moment. Because if your shepherd, if your leader, whoever is leading and guiding and feeding you, has already worked on your backs and your try, today is not today to do back and try. You might want to give it a rest. So what did I want to talk about today? I want to talk about to close the gap. So my sister, Altavis, she said this, and this was like, whoo, I wanted to talk about it when she said it, but I wanted to let it marinate. I wanted to let it kind of get in my spirit a little bit. But she made this statement. It says, a fool walks over the gap. And she said, a wise man fills the gap. So I want to show you this. I'm going to demonstrate this. Now, don't get mad at my art, because, you know, you got haterade, right? Don't have haterade today. Just deal with me and my art. So when I say gap, so see these two lines? See those two lines up there? There's a gap. So she said a fool does this. A fool, I'll just put this little square thing. She said a fool covers the gap. So I just put that as a cover. So if you are a fool and you covered the gap, if you walk over the gap, what's going to happen to you? It's just covered. If you cover the gap, you fall in the gap. So she said a wise man fills the gap. So I'm going to draw another gap. Just stick with me. So again, I know my elementary drawing here. She says a wise man fills the gap. So this is filling the gap. So why are you filling the gap? You are filling the gap so that you can walk across it. So again, the statement that Altavi said, and I'm giving her credit because this is the first time I heard it, so I'm giving her the credit for it. Altavi says that a fool covers a gap, but a wise man fills the gap. And that really jumped out at me, because guess what happens if you're walking and a fool just covered a gap? So let's say the ditch. So the fool covered the ditch, but now you're walking. And they left it covered, and you didn't know that there was a gap. You didn't know that there was a ditch. What would happen to you? You will fall in that ditch. Actually, you probably would hurt yourself because you weren't expecting a gap. You wasn't expecting a hole, so you would literally fall in the ditch. But a wise man fills the ditch. She said a wise man fills the ditch. So when you fill the ditch, what happens is you put stuff in it so that you may be able to walk as if there was nothing there. So again, you close the gap. You see my little artwork? Forgive me because I'm not the best drawer. You just put a covering over top. But if you step on that, there is nothing solid underneath, you will fall through. But she said that a wise man fills the gap. See, that gap is filled. So you can walk over that gap and not fall in. And you may say, well, what does this have to do with going to church? I believe in the state that we're in, there's a lot of people panicking. And there's a lot of people looking for information. They're trying to find what is the truth about what's going on, what sets their heart at peace at what's going on. And then some people just don't know what to do. So they're just watching silly things. So people are looking for a way to fill the gap. Because right now there is a gap in truth and fear. And some people are getting misinformation. So what's happening is because they're only covering the gap, you can fall in the pit because you're still unsure. You don't know how to regulate the things you think are true and the things that you think are untrue. But it says that a wise man fills the gap. But as I began to meditate on what she said, and I began to pray, I said, God, there's uncertain times. So how do we lead people? How do we direct people? How do we provide answers for people that are actually looking for a real answer? And God began to impress upon my spirit. Now, this is my spirit. So you're having an opportunity to hear what my spirit is, what God is saying to my spirit. So this might not resonate with you. So a fool covers a gap. A wise man fills a gap. A godly man closes the gap. I'm gonna say it again. A fool, hey cousin Tanya, a fool covers the gap. So if you cover the gap still exists. And right now, there's a gap between your fear and the truth. There's a gap. So you can cover that. You can act like it don't exist, but if you walk in the middle of this information, you're going to fall in a ditch. You're going to fall in a pit. And that pit probably is a pit of panic. That pit is a pit of depression. That pit is a pit of uncertainty. So it says that a fool covers a gap. I don't want you to be a fool. It says a wise man fills the gap. And as I was praying and as God just downloaded in my spirit, but he says a godly man. A godly man. I didn't say a religious man. Didn't say religious man. A godly man closes the gap. Now you may say, well, how do you close the gap? See, what I began to learn in my years of experience that with God, there are no gaps. See, you can fill that gap with all your worldly knowledge. And what it will do, it'll create a little balance. It'll create a little balance and you can walk over that thing because it's filled. But when you have God, see, in God there are no deficits. God closes the gap. So in my illustration, in my secondary, remedial information, so you got a cover, right? You put a cover over top of that. So someone comes and they walk over that. That's just a cover. What's going to happen? They're going to fall. They're going to fall. Now you can fill this gap with your information here, right? You can fill it with your worldly knowledge here. You can fill that. And people will be able to walk across with your worldly knowledge. But when you become godly, what you understand is that there are no gaps. You have ability to literally close the gap. We can close the gap as believers. Now you may say, Michael, you're tripping. I don't know what you're talking about. You've been off too long. And I don't know how you say you can close the gap. I'm going to give you some scriptures because in this season, I want to give you scriptures. So you just need to understand that I'm not just talking out of my mouth. I want the word to speak for me. So I'm going to allow the word to speak for me. So we're going to go to James chapter 1, verse number 5. So let me explain to you. A fool covers the gap. So if you're listening to me, I'm going to believe that you're not a fool. If you're wise, you're seeking information. And you're getting information, so you're wise, so you begin to fill it up. Because remember, I said there's fear in the truth. And right now, if you fall in that gap, that pit that you're going to fall into, it's going to be fear. It's not going to be fear. It's going to actually be depression. It's actually going to be anxiety. But God said he didn't give us that. God didn't give us that. And I can go to that scripture. But God didn't give us that. But let me explain something to you. Remember, I said that a godly man actually can close the gap. As if the gap never existed, because with God, we serve a God that is a God of completion. He says, my peace, nothing missing, nothing lacking. Nothing missing, nothing lacking. So if there is a gap and you put God in the middle of it, there will be nothing missing, nothing lacking, as if a gap never existed. So we live in a time right now that people are full of uncertainty, and you're trying to figure out where I go. So you turn on the news to see if this is where I go. You go to Facebook to get a little information to see if this is where I go. What I want you to do today is turn to the rock. Turn to the rock. Turn to the foundation. Turn to the cornerstone. Turn to God. Now let me give you this. James chapter 1, verse 5. If any of you, it didn't say if a pastor, it didn't say if a bishop, it didn't say if the evangelist, it didn't say if it's the usher. It says if any of you lack wisdom. Wisdom is the proper application to what you know. So because you're not a fool, you're seeking God for wisdom. Let him ask of God. So I'm trying to tell you where to go to get the wisdom. So don't turn to Snapchat. Don't turn to TikTok. Don't turn to Instagram. Don't turn to those things to get wisdom. It says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally. So God is not holding back his knowledge. So the gap that you have between the truth, the gap that you have with your fear, if you don't get God to fill it up, what's going to happen? You're going to fall into a pit of anxiety. You're going to fall into a pit of being anxious. You may fall into a pit of depression. You might fall into a pit of just so much uncertainty that you begin to eat yourself from the inside out. It says, God giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth if not. That means that God is not, he's not selfish with what he's given. He's going to give you whatever you ask for, whatever you need. Hey, Aunt Baby says he's going to give it to anybody, right? Then he says, and it shall be given unto him. So right now there is a gap. There is a gap going on in society. But what I'm trying to tell you, that we literally don't have to fill our gaps. God has the ability to close the gap. So what we need right now is to close the gap. Yes, wisdom. There is wisdom in covering the gap. But what I'm trying to tell you with God, he says, my peace, nothing missing, my shalom, nothing lacking, nothing out of place. When you walk with God, you can have the peace of God where literally nothing is missing, nothing is lacking, and nothing will be out of place as if it never happened before. You will see a straight line. You will see a straight line, right? It shall be given to him. And then verse 6, it says, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that waver is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. Verse number 7. For let not that man think he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So the challenge that I have for you today is, where are you going to get your wisdom? What are you using to fill in your gap? See, it says, let him ask in faith, nothing wavering, for he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. What I want you to know, if you're using the media, the big media right now, our standard national news, to fill your gap, you will be wavering. Because the information that they give you is changing every single day. It's changing every single day. I live in the state of Delaware. The restrictions are changing every single day. 1 minute, it says only essential personnel. But you are allowed to go to the parks. You're allowed to go outside and walk. The next minute, they're saying, well, you were at the parks and you wasn't 6 feet away. The next minute, they're saying we're taking the basketball hoops off because you were playing the basketball. So what I'm trying to tell you, that if you want to close the gap, the national news media is not the place that you go to close the gap, because it says he wavers like the sea. So they're changing their story every single day. They're changing the script every single day. So what I'm trying to tell you, it says in verse 7, for let that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. Sometimes we don't receive from God because we are wavering. And the reason that we are wavering is because the substance that we actually use to fill our gap, that now we're trying to walk across and be comfortable, was not a solid substance. You know how you have quicksand? and you stand on quicksand. And when you stand on quicksand, you sink. And the harder you try to get out of the quicksand, the more you sink. Do you know those times when you actually pour cement, you actually got to have cement, give it time for it to settle? Because if you walk in cement too soon, it's soft and it takes time. What I'm trying to tell you is that when you get godly wisdom, it don't take any time. Gap closed, case dismissed. The gap is closed, case dismissed. So as a godly man, I have the ability to close the gap. So I have the ability to discern between what the world is telling me and what God is actually doing. Because God said in his word, he won't do anything without revealing it to his men, to his prophets, to his mouthpieces, right? So if you need your gap closed, you need to go to God. Stop covering the gap like it don't exist, because trials come. Trials come. Now let me tell you, James chapter 1, I'm going to jump over a verse. James chapter 1, verse number 3. Now, I'm going out of order, but I just want to say this. Verse number 3, it says, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. Verse 4, but let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect, mature, entire, wanting nothing. See, if you don't want anything, for you not to want anything, for you not to need anything, you must understand that there is going to be a trial of your faith. There's going to be a trying and a testing on what you believe in. Right now, we're in a place where we are testing, trying to figure out what we believe in. But like I said before, a fool covers the gap as if it doesn't exist. So I'm not a fool. I know there's an issue going on in the world, but it says a wise man will fill the gap. So some of you think you're wise because you're filling the gap with worldly knowledge, but God laid in my spirit that a godly man actually can close the gap where there is no gap, where there is no misinformation, because God said that he gives me the ability to discern a thing. See, God gives us all the ability to discern a thing, but you got to seek after him. You got to want it. Now, there's another scripture that I want to give you. See, get out your feelings, because this has nothing to do with your feelings. We're going to go to Joshua 1 and 5. Joshua 1 and 5. So you might be, I'm a little nervous right now because this is put up or shut up time. Yeah, this is put up or shut up time. You've been talking about you love God, you believe God, and God is this and God is all that. Well, this is put up or shut up time. This is where the rubber meets the road time. And God has put me on here today just to encourage you to get out your feelings. I said it before, get out your feelings and get on your knees. Go to the rock. Go to the place that can fill all the gaps, that God can give you the peace that surpasses all of your understanding. So we're going to go to Joshua chapter 1, verse 5. It says, there shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. What I want you to understand that this verse, right, it was written to Joshua because Moses was a great leader. So stick with me. So some of you are in a position right now that God is asking you to lead. You're in a position that you got to lead because now you're home, right? And my pastor always says you teach what you know, but you reproduce what you are. So right now your kids are able to see either you believe in this God thing or you don't believe in this God thing. Either God is going to heal us or God is not going to heal us. Either you're going to be stable in your thinking and say that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly all that I may ask or think, according to the power that works within me. So either you believe this power is in you or you don't have this power in you. Either God can heal you if you get the virus or God actually can keep you from getting the virus. At some point, you got to understand that we are to become joy, that we are to become healing, that we are to become peace, that when people come in our circle, they shouldn't be worried. They shouldn't have any anxiety because God hasn't called me to fill a gap. God has called me to close the gap. So where there is anxiety, God called me to close that and speak the word over it. God calls me to take those people that are sad and downtrodden. God said that I am joy, and God said that the joy of the Lord is your strength. And I begin to minister this word, and it begins to speak to your spirit. So when I'm speaking today, I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking to the real you. I'm speaking to the spirit you, and I'm telling you to get off the mat. Get off the mat and fight. Use this word, use this power, use the authority that God has given you. God has not called us to worry about any gaps in our life, because God said, if you lack wisdom, I'll give it to you. But he said, if you're wavering, if you're unstable, if you're like the wind tossed and to and fro, you won't receive anything. God said, don't let that man think he will receive anything from me. So what is happening is you are filling your gaps with misinformation. And because you are filling your gaps with misinformation, what's happening is you're unwavering and you're not in a position to receive what God wants you to receive. God has called us to close gaps in this season. We are gap closers. I'm not covering a gap. I'm not filling a gap. I am closing the gap. There is a difference. Joshua 1:5. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life, as with Moses. So I will be with thee. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. Verse number 6. Be strong and of good courage. For unto this people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land which I swear unto their fathers to give thee. Verse number 7. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which Moses, my servant, commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand, turn not to the left hand, that thou mayest prosper whatsoever thou goest. Now check verse 8 out. Check verse 8 out. Because remember, I said if you lack and you need wisdom, verse 8, this book of the law. Remember, the previous scripture that I read in James, it said, ask God. It didn't say go to social media. It didn't say go to social media to close your gap. It didn't say go to social media to be prosperous. It says if you need wisdom, that's the proper application of what you know. It said ask God. Verse number 8, this book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Good success. If we want success in this time, in this hour, if we want to be successful, this is not the time to act like what's going on is not happening. But what you must understand, that God has called us to live above this one world system. God has called us to live in this world, but not be of this world. So I'm concerned, but I'm not worried, because God told me that I can cast my cares to him and that he cares for me. God said that I'm able to do more because I walk with him, and that he infuses he infuses me with strength. So even when I'm weak, I'm strong. So he said, let the weak say I'm strong. God said, even when I am afraid, he said, be thou strong and courageous. Be thou strong and courageous. So courage is moving in the presence of fear. But see, when I walk with God and I read the scriptures, I understand that by reading the scriptures, that God came through for his people. So I'm not going to tell you a lie that God is going to come through for all of you. I'm not going to tell you a lie. God is not coming through for all of you because all of you are not his children. All of you haven't made God's house your dwelling place. Now, you have the ability, you have the opportunity to make it your dwelling place. You have that opportunity. But if it's not your dwelling place, then this scripture, if you haven't taken on the new covenant of God, if you haven't confessed with your mouth that Romans road, if you haven't done all of that, then this doesn't apply to you. So remember, I told you in the beginning, watch where you're eating. You got to watch where you're eating, because people are giving you scriptures right now and telling that you could just say Psalms 91 and that you're good. But this says that made thy habitation. Habitation is where you live. Are you living with God? Are you communing with God? Are you walking with God? Now, God is grace and God has mercies. God has all of that. So I'm not saying that you had to walk with God for 1,000 years. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that maybe you were unsure that this thing is your thing. But what I'm trying to tell you, that these scriptures apply to those that believe. And God said, don't let any man think that he's going to receive anything of me, if he's unstable and that he is wavering. A double-minded man is unstable. So some of you are tossed to and fro in your mind because you're receiving information that God never intended for you to see. God said, whose report will you believe? Are you going to believe that God is the healer? Are you going to believe that you are the healer protecting your health? Are you believing that you're above only and never believe? Are you believing that you're the head and not the tail? Are you believing that if you touch any deadly thing, that God will take the poison out? Are you believing that or not? Because if you're not, that's an opportunity. The enemy only needs a small crack. But I'm trying to tell you, get out your feelings. Because God said to me in my spirit, again, this is what God gave to me. So if this ain't ministering to you, I'm sorry. But God said that I can close the gap. I can close the gap because he said if I lack wisdom, then I can go to him. I can go to him if I lack wisdom. Now let me tell you my confidence. Let me tell you some confidence, right? Let's go to Psalms 103. Let me tell you why I'm confident. See, some people need some proof. So I'm going to give you some proof. Because normally, why I go to church, I've always just not read the word. But this is a time that if you're following, you've eaten off of people's table, you're going to need some word, because you're going to need to go and draw back and go eat this. Because this is, I meditate on the word day and night. So that doesn't mean literally that you're taking this word and eating it. It means mentally you are taking his word, that every time, every moment you get, and you don't let the outer mind go. If the enemy begins to do things, you begin to bring this word up. So if you're laying in your bed and anxiety begins to come on you, begin to speak this word. If fear begins to come on you and say, I don't know how to lead my children, because God was speaking to Joshua as a leader. So even if you are afraid, if you don't know where to go, you can say, God, increase my faith. Help thou my unbelief. Because remember, his disciples asked that. So it's okay for you to be afraid, but it's not okay for you not to move, because faith is movement. Faith is not stagnant. Faith is movement. So either you believe God or you don't believe God. Now, we all believe God at a different level, but you must understand that God has given us all the measure of faith, not a measure, the measure. So whatever the lack in faith is, God has the ability to close that gap and to make that thing possible for you. There is nothing impossible to them that believe. Nothing impossible to them that believe. Now, in your natural mind, it might seem impossible. It might seem insurmountable. It might seem that it will never happen. But I'm telling you, there is nothing impossible for the God that spoke into the cosmos and caused the sun to rise. There is nothing impossible to God that separated from the first heaven from the second heaven from the third heaven. There is nothing impossible for God. I'm talking about the God that told the waters that you can only go this far. There is nothing impossible for God. I'm talking about a God that watered the plants from the ground up. He didn't water it from the ground down. God actually caused the water to come out the ground to nurture the plants. I'm talking about there is nothing impossible for God. I'm talking about a God that made animals and made them look alike and made them similar. But God made fowls to fly. God made fish to go in the water. God made mammals to walk on land. There is nothing impossible for God. I'm talking about the God that looked at clay that just was dirt, and he began to make it, and it was sticky, and it was the ish, and he looked at the hue, and he breathed the breath of life. There is nothing impossible for God. So you may have all this dirt, you may have all this scraps, and you don't know how it's going to come to life. I'm telling you that we have a God that can breathe on your situation, and he can take the dead thing and make it alive. I'm talking about a God that can speak to the dry bones and make them live. I'm talking about a God that can do exceedingly abundantly above all that you may ask or even think. That's the God I'm talking about. I'm talking about a God. I'm talking about a God that never had to get up off his seat to deal with Lucifer anyway. God didn't battle Lucifer. The archangel did, because God's that strong. God wouldn't dignify a creative being. A created being. So this is a created virus. It don't have to come nigh you. You just got to believe the word, and you got to speak the word. But let me give you some reassurance. Psalms 103. Psalms 103, verse 5 is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites because that's one of the ones that God really began to prove his word to me. God really began to prove his word to me. And there's sometimes when the enemy comes, and I'm going to say this while I'm looking up the scripture. A symptom is not a sickness. A symptom is not a sickness. So I just want to reassure you that if you get a cough, that don't mean you got no virus. Yeah, if you get a cough, that don't mean you have a virus. Okay? Because what the enemy does is he doesn't have the ability to create. But what he has the ability is to put thoughts in your mind and make you speak something out and make you create the thing that never existed. So I want to tell you, don't start creating things that don't exist. Because what the media will do is make you create a pandemic in your house. What the media will do is make you create your body to be weakened. Yes, because your words, life and death is in the power of your tongue. Your tongue. So you have the ability to speak to your body. Now, Psalms 103:5, right? This was the passage that God gave me. I'm going to just read 1 through 5. But this is not the scripture that is going to reassure you, but this is the verse that God gave to me that I stand on when I get anxious. Because remember I said I can close the gap. I don't have to feel it. I can close it. Bless the Lord, O my soul. This is verse 1. All that is within me, bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. Who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases. He didn't say some. He said all. He heals all thine iniquities, past sins that may have been passed down through your bloodline. So what you got to do is begin to speak the word to your spirit and say, I cancel the assignment of the enemy. I cancel cancer. I cancel AIDS. I cancel pneumonia. I cancel flus. I cancel it. I curse them at the root. So I don't curse them just at the cough. I curse the very virus itself that is trying to attach to my respiratory system. And you begin to say, lungs, you're going to breathe properly. Lungs, you're going to breathe properly. Sinuses, you are going to line up and function the way, because God's word says he's forgive all thine iniquities. He healeth all thy diseases. Verse number 4. He redeemeth thy life from destruction. He crowneth thee with loving kindness and tender mercies. That's just how good God is. He crowns you. And when you crown somebody, that means you're showing them a position in the priesthood. You crown them. You're letting people know that this is my child. So he's going to crown me with love and kindness and tender mercies. Verse 5. Who satisfy thy mouth with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagle. God gave me that scripture when I was going through. Excuse me for one moment. When my body was wrecked with pain. And there was times when I felt like I couldn't make it. And there was times when my back would hurt so bad that I would just cry. I would take Psalms 103, verse 5, and I would just say it over and over. He satisfied thy mouth with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagle. So I began to apply the word, and I will begin to say, God has forgiven all mine iniquities, that God has healed me from every disease. I begin to say, I'm not worthy, but God, you crown me with your loving kindness. You crown me with your tender mercies. So even though I'm not worthy, you're still crown me, because once I got adopted into your kingdom, you said I'm redeemed from the curse of the law. You said I'm redeemed from sickness and disease. And I will tell my back that my youth is being renewed like the eagle. So there was times when I couldn't bend back. I couldn't bend back. I couldn't stand up straight, but I would say, back, you're standing up straight today. I begin to say, knee, you're feeling better today. I begin to say, hip, you're going to move today. And I would move, and the pain would hit me, and the pain will make me want to stay still. But then God will begin to say, just keep speaking the word. Do you believe me? So when I couldn't get up, and the pain was hurting, and I would move, and the devil with all thought in my mind say, see, you're a fool trying to move today. You're a fool for trying to get up today. You know the doctor told you it's going to take this many weeks for you to feel better. I will go to the scripture and I will say, back, my youth is renewed like the eagle. Back, my hip is renewed like the eagle. And the eagle is one of the biggest, baddest birds we got. And I would just keep saying it. And I would keep saying it. And sometimes I would try to move. And my back would lock up. And as the tears started to roll, because remember I told you, this is not about your feelings, this is about your faith. So as the tears began to roll, because the pain was just that bad, I would not let the symptom keep me, because I would say, body, you're moving today. Hip, you're operating today. Hip, you're fluid today. God, I put the word in my hip. I put the word on my back. I put the word on my knees. I put the word on my ankles. And sometimes you got to speak this word to yourself, because the greatest battle that you're ever going to fight is the inner me. The inner me. Because for many years, the gap was filled with the world's knowledge. And the world knowledge says that you can't walk today. The world knowledge says that your back is hurt today. But God says that my youth can be restored like the eagle. So I'm telling you, God says that I can close the gap. So even when I was hurting, God said, be thou strong and courageous. So I would get up and I would move. And there was times that my body would crack, literally crack, and I could feel it. And my hip would pop. And it's like, Lord, my hip just popped. I don't even know what to do. Lord, my body is hurting. Then God would bring that scripture back to me. And I would just say, hip, you are renewed like the eagle. Yes, so I'm not prescribing something that I ain't never been through. But remember, I said that a godly man couldn't close the gap. So you may be filled with some worldly information, and you're looking at ibuprofen right now, saying that I need ibuprofen to close this gap. You may be saying that I need some Percocets to close this gap. But I remember I had some pain that hurt me so bad that Percocets couldn't take the pain away. I had pain that was so bad that I had Motrin, and I had Motrin. Motrin couldn't take the pain away. I had pain so bad that morphine would not take the pain away. And I would get up and cry. I would get up and cry. And my wife would say, are you okay? But then I began to speak the words of my spirit, because God said I can close the gap. So God began to tell me, what the medicine can't do, I can do. What the medicine can't do, I can do. Either you believe this thing works or you don't believe this thing works. See what's going to happen when there is no drugs for you to take. Some of you right now may be laid off and you don't have access to the medicine. You don't have access to the medicine, and your body may be wrecked with pain. I had the medicine, and God began to say, do you believe in that medicine or do you believe in me? Can you close the gap of the pain? Can you close the gap? And I set that morphine down. I set that Percocet down. I set it all down. And I begin to say, if God don't take the pain away, then the pain just ain't meant to be taken away. But I'm telling you that as I begin to become stable in my thinking, as I begin to become more sure in what God had told me, I began to close the gap. No longer did I fill my gap with Percocet. No longer did I fill my gap with morphine. No longer did I fill my gap with that. What I began to do was fill my gap with this word. Fill my gap with this word. So yes, there was tears coming down my face because the pain hurt so bad. But I began to tell my body, you're going to do what I say you're going to do. I began to say that you're the God of every organ, fiber, nerve, and cell in my body. That's what I begin to say to my body, because God said, I don't got to fill the gap. I can close the gap as if there was never anything there. Faith doesn't deny the facts. Faith denies the power of the facts. So I want to ask you, whose report are you going to believe? Whose report? Who are you going to run to? Now let me get to why I took you to Psalms 103 to begin with. I took you to Psalms 103 to begin with because I want you to understand verse 20. See, there's a song that says, this is how I fight my battles. There's a song that says, it may be look like that I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I need you to understand that I am surrounded by God's love. I'm surrounded by God's tender mercies. He said he crowned me. He says he's healed me for all my diseases. He's healed me from all my iniquities. What the enemy wants you to do and think that God ain't healed you. But I'm here today to declare to you that God has healed you, but you got to want it. You got to stop being wavering. You got to stop being wavering. Like I told you a couple minutes ago, that a sickness can be healed. A symptom is not a sickness. It's not a sickness. It's not a sickness. It is not a sickness. Don't take a symptom and create a sickness. So if you got a cough, you'll speak to your body and say, cough, line up. If you got a cough, you don't claim nothing. Don't claim a thing. Don't claim anything. But this is why I know that I can close gaps. Because angels, right? See, the word of God travels at the speed of light. The speed of light goes around the earth like 7 times in a second. 7 times in a second. So that means that the moment there is a deficit, listen, I understand that I'm not fighting anything to begin with. Verse number 20. Bless the Lord. Yes, his angels. Whose angels? Not my angels. His angels. That excel in strength, that do his commandments, hearken unto the voice of the word. Verse 21. Bless ye the Lord, all you hosts, you ministers of his. Woo! You minister of his. You ministers of his. Now, minister is just a servant. So you don't got to speak like I speak to be a minister, because a minister is just a servant. So let me translate that. Bless you, the Lord, all you hosts, you servants of his that do his pleasure. Remember, I told you earlier, some of you quote 91, but you're not doing his pleasure. You're not his. You're his creation, but you're not his child. Bless the Lord, all his works in all places of his dominion. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Verse chapter 104. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord, my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretched out the heavens like a curtain, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the water, who walketh the clouds his chariot, who maketh the clouds his chariot, who walketh upon the wings of the wind, who maketh his angels spirits, who ministereth a flame of fire, who laid the foundation of the earth, that it should not be removed. Look how strong your God is. Listen, your God is so strong. He maketh the clouds his chariot. He walks upon the wings of the wind. If God can walk upon the wind of the wing, right? You don't think he can fix a tiny virus that only could be seen by a microscope? Yeah, I'm looking in the camera. You think the God that caused the sun and the moon to shine and stay where they are, how big the moon is, how big the sun is, he can handle that big sun. He can handle this galaxy with Jupiter and Mars and Venus and Pluto. He can make all of that work. How big that is. He can't deal with a microscopic virus. Man, you playing yourself. You are playing yourself. Stop playing yourself. Stop playing yourself. You want to tell me the God, listen, who maketh the clouds his chariots, who walketh upon the wings of the wings, upon the wings of the wind, who maketh his angel spirits, who ministers a flaming fire, who laid the foundations of the earth, that it shall not be removed. that cover it with deep as with a garment. The water stood above the mountains. What? The water stood above the mountains. So they're telling me the God that I serve, he calls the mountains to stand above the waters. The God I serve caused the earth not to be removed. The God I serve created the firmaments. He can do all these big things, but he can't protect you from a virus. Stop playing yourself. But if you're a fool, you won't fill your gap with godly wisdom. If you're a fool. Because with God, he closes the gap. But the verse that I really wanted to get to was verse number 20, 103:20. I know I've been giving you a lot of verses. Listen, bless the Lord. Yes, his angels that excel in strength, that do his commandments, hearkening unto the voice of his word, hearkening unto the voice of his word, hearkening unto the voice of his word, hearkening unto the voice of his word. So God said that his word won't turn to him void. So when I'm in trouble, listen, I can call on God when I'm in trouble because he's hearkening to the voice of his word. So let me explain to you. So some of you may say, well, how do I get the word to work? I don't know how to pray. I don't know the words of prayer. Listen, you don't need to know the words of prayer. What you need to do is have a conversation with God. Let me just go to Psalms 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even my enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host shall encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war shall rise up against me, in this will I be confident. One thing that I have desired of the Lord, that I will seek after, that I may dwell, that I may dwell, that I may dwell, that I may dwell, that I may live, that it is my habitation. This is where you find me usually. Dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire of his temple. Listen to verse 5. This is the benefit for dwelling in the house of the Lord. For in the time of trouble, in the time of the virus, in the time of plagues, in the time of famine, in the time of depression, in the time of lack, in the time of desperation, in the time of trouble, he shall hide me in his pavilion. I don't got to make anything because God is my refuge. He will hide me in his pavilion, in the secret of his tabernacle. Jesus, in the secret of his tabernacle. Hallelujah. In the secret of his tabernacle. God has been wanting to tabernacle with you for so long. God wants you to, he wants to tabernacle with you. God wants to tabernacle with you. So God says, Psalms 27 verse 5, for in the time of trouble, he shall hide me in his pavilion. So you want to know where to go to pray. Hold on. He says, in the secret of his tabernacle, he shall hide me. He shall set me upon a rock. Listen, God has been trying to tabernacle with us for so long. So you want to know how to pray. You want to know how to pray. Now, this wasn't what I'm going to give you this for free, right? Because remember, I told you what the word said. The word says that God, verse 103 and 20, that the angels wait for his word, right? The angels wait for his word. The angels wait for his word. And I told you that God travels at the speed of light, right? The angels travel at the speed of light. That means they can go around the earth 7 times in 1 second. They wait for his word. So what you got to do, remember I said that you can close the gap. So when you close the gap, you get in the word. You get in the word. So you don't have to know the words of prayer. What you got to do is begin to give God's word back to him. So I go to Psalms 1 and I begin to say, blessed is Michael that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor sitteth in the way of the sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But I will delight in the law of the Lord, and in his law will I meditate day and night. That Michael shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that I will bring forth my fruit in my season, and my leaf shall not wither, that whatsoever I do shall prosper. So I go to Psalms 1 and I begin to speak Psalms 1 over my life. Then I go to Psalms 3, verse 1, Lord, how thou have increased me when I was in trouble. Many are they that rise up against me. Many there be which say of my soul, there is no help for him in God. But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter of my head. You begin to pray the word. You begin to use the word. You begin to allow the word to become your prayer. Then I go to Psalms 8. Because I just heard some things. I begin to say, O Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth, who has set thy glory above the heavens. Out of the mouth of babes, suckling has thou adored strength because of my enemies, that my mighty still the enemy and the avenger. You begin to speak the word, and then you say, okay, I done did that Psalms. So I'm just telling you what to do because I'm trying to tell you how to close the gap. You don't close the gap with CNN. You don't close the gap with these things. You begin to get the word. So then you go to the 23rd Psalms. Then you say, the Lord is Michael's shepherd. Michael shall not want. The Lord maketh me lie down. So even though all this craziness is going on, even though all this stuff wants me to be anxious, the Lord make Michael lie down in green pastures. Make me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters to tranquil places. God restoreth my soul. He lead me in the way of passages for his righteousness, for his name's sake. Yea, though Michael walks through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear. For thou art with me, for thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. I'm trying to tell you, if you don't know how to pray, just get the word and begin to speak the word. Because Psalms 103 and 20, it says that the angels wait for his word. Listen, I'm telling you, then you begin to go to Psalms 27, that the Lord is the light of my life and my salvation. Whose life? The Lord is the light of Michael's life. Psalms 31, verse 1. In thee, O Lord, do I, Michael Gibson, put my trust. I, Tanya Travers, put my trust. I, Daniel Scott, put my trust. I, Maurice Clemens, put my trust. I, Dorothea Robinson, put my trust. I, Altavia Pelzer, do I put my trust. I, Claudette Ray, put my trust. Never let me be ashamed. Deliver me in thy righteousness. Bow thy ear to me. Deliver me speedily, God. Be thou my strong rock for an house of defense to save me. If you don't know how to pray and commune with God, see, the angels wait for his word. So to activate God, to get God moving on your behalf, what time I got left? To get the angels moving on your behalf, what you got to do is get in the word and activate the word. Activate the word, speak the word. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Are you going to speak what the enemy is putting in your mind? Or are you going to speak what God said you should be speaking? Speak the word, speak the word. If you want to live, speak the word. Speak the word. Listen, if you're panicking, Psalms 46, I'm telling you, speak the word. Psalms 46. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in the time of trouble. Therefore, Michael will not fear. Altavis will not fear. Tanya will not fear. Though the earth be removed, though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, I'm not fearing. I'm not fearing. I'm not fearing. I'm not fearing. You got to speak the word to your spirit, to your body, because the word says in Psalms 103 and 20 that the angels hearken, listen attentively for his word. I just told you how to pray. Jesus, I just told you how to pray. I just told you how to pray. Get in this word and begin to pray. Get in this word and begin to speak the word. Listen, begin this word and begin to speak the word. The word has the ability. The word has the ability. Now I'm gonna close with this. What I got 59 minutes. I've been on here too long because I went on a tangent. But let me tell you the real reason why I got over here. Now, God gave me this, and I was beginning to write a poem, and I wasn't going to share it with you. But hey Pam, praise the Lord. As I begin to minister today, and God began to drop this in my spirit, this poem is going to be fire. Yeah, it's going to be fire. But I want you to go to 2 Kings chapter 5. 2 Kings chapter 5. And now when I give you this, don't steal it now. You can steal it. Just give me credit. Like I gave Altavis for the beginning. I gave Altavis the credit for the beginning. But listen to this. 2 Kings verse 5. Let me get to my Bible. See, I use the table of contents. Yeah, so don't be ashamed if you gotta use a table of contents, because that's why they put it there, for you to know where the scriptures are. So that's what I'm going to. But you got to get this. Just hold on. I know I'm long. Forgive me. 2 Kings. Now, it's very important that you get this in your spirit. Now, I'm going to give you this word. If someone's typing in, I want you to repeat after me. Repeat after me, because this is what God gave me the other night. I was in Bible class. Right? And God gave me this word. Now, remember, I told you this word is for me, right? So this ain't got nothing to do with this is for you. So this is what God gave me. He said, we're shut in, but we ain't shut out. Glory to God. We are shut in, but we're not shut out. See, the revolution will not be televised, because what we're fighting, the weapons of our warfare, are mighty through God for the pulling down of strongholds. You ain't fighting nothing with your hands anyway. So God began to say that we're shut in, but we're not shut out. See, actually, because we're shut in, we actually got more power. So my question is, do you got that Holy Ghost power? Do you got that Holy Ghost power? Do you got that Holy Ghost power? So let me go to this verse. I'm going to be quick. Let me see. 1 hour. Okay. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse number 10. So this is going to what I want to get to you. This is to close the gap. See, this is what believers have the ability to do, is to close the gap. Because right now they're saying, see, all the churches are closed, right? What are we going to do? The churches are closed. What are we going to do? We got to go to cyber church. What are we going to do? Listen, 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 to verse 10. I'm just going to read what verse 10 said. But you need to read all those verses. Shut in, but we're not shut out. Come on. It says, Elijah sent a messenger unto him, saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. I read it fast. I'm going to slow down. And Elijah sent a messenger unto him, saying, go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. Now I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause for a second. So check this out. You can't go to church. You can't get in the building. What's that got to do with that Holy Ghost power? What that got to do with this fire? What that got to do with this burden removing, yoke destroying power? That is the anointing of Almighty God. What's that got to do with Christ? Because listen, verse number 2, Elijah sent a messenger unto him. Did Elijah go to him? Hallelujah. Did Elijah lay hands on him? Was Elijah in a building? Was Elijah confined to 4 walls? Did Elijah go down and have the ushers and greeters meet him? Did Elijah say, come down to the altar? Did Elijah do any of that? What did Elijah do? What did Elijah do? Elijah sent a messenger. So Elijah didn't even go back to the man. Elijah didn't go back to the man. See, because the angels hearken for the word of God. The angels hearken. Elijah sent a messenger unto him, saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times. Thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. So I want to submit to you today that I'm shut in, but I'm not shut out. I don't need to Pastor Ray to lay his hands on me. I don't need Bishop Lee to say a word for me. I don't need T.D. Jakes necessarily to give me a word. I don't need to be in the building, because God said Elijah sent a messenger. The messenger didn't walk down to the church aisle. The messenger didn't actually, Elijah just sent the word. Elijah just sent the word. Elijah just sent the word. So God brought me here today just to send the word to you. See, I don't got to touch you. See, because there is no wall too thick that prayer can't go through. There is no mountain too high that prayer can't go over. There is no valley too low that prayer can't go under. There is no distance so far that prayer can't reach. There is no wave. There is no rocky storm too much that prayer can't navigate through. There is no hurricane that prayer can't get in the middle and go through. There is no earthquake that can shake prayer. There was no angel that could contend with the prayer. Because I remember when they prayed, he said, I was praying for you. I was praying for you. But for 7 days, but God said, I heard you pray the first time. God said, I heard you pray the first time. So I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have to leave. So I don't got to leave my room to send healing to you. I don't got to leave this place to send peace to you. I don't got to leave where I'm at to get joy to you. All I got to do is speak the word. Speak the word. Because we shut in, but we ain't shut out. It ain't never been about no building. God said I can close the gap. God said I can close the gap. Close the gap. Don't fill the gap. Close the gap. If you got anxiety, close it. Speak the word to it. If you got fear, close it. Speak the word to it. If you don't got peace, close it. Speak the word to it. If you don't got joy, close it. Speak the word to it. If you don't got happiness, close it. Speak the word to it. Speak the word to it. Speak the word. Speak the word covers. It don't cover. It closes the gap. There are no gaps. Remember I said, be thou strong and courageous. I don't care if you're fearful. Speak the word. There is life in this word. Hallelujah. There is life in this word. Now, this is the old covenant, right? This is the Old Testament. The Old Testament. Elijah never left where he was. And this man, if you read the verse for yourself, he had leprosy. He had leprosy, which was a disease. He had leprosy. But Elijah didn't bring him to the church service. No. Elijah didn't bring him to the church service. Elijah didn't tell him to get in the prayer line. Hey, Elijah didn't even send an anointed cloth. Elijah sent the word. He sent the word. So God has told me to tell you that we're shut in, but we're not shut out. We're shut in, but we are not shut out. I will not be defeated. If God can hold the sun, moon, and stars in place, you're going to tell me that he can't fix a little infinitesimal virus that you need a microscope? Man, stop playing with yourself. Women of God, stop messing with yourself. Now look, Matthew 8, verse number 5. Now I showed you in the Old Testament, right? In the Old Testament, did Elijah go to all-night prayer to fix Naaman? Did Naaman even come to Elijah? He didn't have to go there. He didn't have to go there because remember I told you in James said a double-minded man is unstable. So either you believe the words that are coming out of God's mouth, not my mouth. Remember I told you in the beginning? If you didn't catch it, you got to put your spiritual ears on. So this is not what I'm doing. This is what God's doing in your life. Is your spirit in tune to hear what God says to you? Because this ain't never been about a building. So what? The buildings are shut. Naaman didn't come to the building to get healed. He didn't come to the building. He just understood the power of God. Matthew 8, and I'm going to get off of here. I've been on here for too long. Lord, forgive me. It says, chapter 8, verse number 5. And when Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion beseeching him, and saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home sick of the palsy. Again, a disease that seemed to be incurable at that time. Grievously tormented. And Jesus saith unto him, I will come and heal him. So Jesus volunteered to come and heal him. Verse number 8. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou should come under my roof, but speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. So I want to charge you today to understand we're shut in, but we're not shut out. We are shut in, but we are not shut out. So you don't need to be fearful. You don't need to be fearful if you can't get close to a man, a woman of God. You don't need fearful if you can't get into the place. Because I just carried you how to pray. You can go to Psalms and just pick those scriptures out. But you must understand that I don't have to lay my hands on you. I literally don't have to touch you for you to be healed. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou shalt come under my roof, but speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. Speak the word only. Psalms 103:20, the angels hearken to hear what? The word. They hearken to hear the word. So what you got to do to fight is arm yourself with the word. Speak the word only. So what I submitted to you is that Elijah, he never met the man, he just spoke the word and he was healed. What I want to submit to you is that God never came, Jesus never came to the centurion, but the word was spoken and he was healed. What I want to submit to you today, that whatever you're going through, whatever gap that you have in your life, get wisdom. Get the wisdom of the word. And when you speak the word, the gap can be closed. I go to church to close the gap. I go to church because I understand that I'm shut in, but I'm not shut out. I understand that now I got more time to seek after God. I got more time that I don't got to put up with my manager's mess. Now I don't got to put up with my girlfriend's mess. Now I don't got to put up with all the doubt and things that will cause me to be unwavered. Now I don't got to bite my tongue when I really want to say that God has healed me and that God has delivered me. Now I don't got to bite my tongue. Because see, when you're in the corporate society and God's saying you're healed and God's saying that all is well with you, God is saying that you're above only and not beneath. God's saying that he is well able. But that coworker sit next to you and want to spew some doubt. And because you don't want to cause a disruption, you just silence yourself. Now you're at home, and when that situation comes, remember I told you that a symptom is not a sickness. So what you can do is begin to speak the word. So we can touch and agree like this. We can touch and agree just like this. You don't got to come in my dwelling. You don't have to come to me for you to be healed. Listen. There is no distance too far that God can't reach. His angels do his bidding. His angels, not my angels. They're not my angels. Listen, when I speak, hey, Melissa, when I speak the word of God, I have no power, but God's word is powerful. I have no power. If God give me a word of wisdom for you, if God allows me to prophesy in your life, or God allows me to lay hands and you get healed, that is not Michael. That is God. You got to understand that all of this stuff has been God. All of this stuff has been God. What you've been thinking is you've been following after man, thinking that it is the man healing you. It's not the man healing you. It is God healing you. We're just the vessel that God may be using to give you the word to ignite the flame that is inside of you. It is God doing the healing. It's not Michael doing the healing. So I submit to you today. We're shut in, but we're not shut out. If anything, you got more time to be close to God. You got more time to be close to God. And I will tell you, in this age, I'm going to end with this. Forgive me for being long-winded. But hey, I got nothing but time on my hand right now. Proverbs. I'm gonna close with Proverbs. I'm gonna close with Proverbs. Sister Pam, I tell you, we need God. Like, look, man, I remember, Bishop Parson, he would come and he would speak and minister. I miss those times that, your dad would minister. I miss those times. And I miss those times when Bishop Kelly, I remember Bishop Kelly and Bishop Mack. I remember those old guards. But so they didn't leave all of this for us to be empty-handed. They didn't give us all that word for us to be able not to recall it back. See, I come from GTC, Gospel Tabernacle. Number one, out of Happy Grace, Maryland. And out of that came many other churches and many other works. But the foundation was laid. Because the foundation was laid, I know that where I can go and where I can turn to. The foundation was laid. This host, listen, family. This is my church family on here right now. So I'm speaking to my church family. Church family, remember, it was Happy Grace, but then it was like Hagerstown, and then it was like Syracuse, and then it was like Connecticut, and then it was like Newark, then it was like Pensacola. One word coming out of one region took the whole East Coast. Took the whole East Coast. Zion Temple. All these places, Holloway Holdings in Crisfield, Maryland. All these places, and we used to fellowship with these people in Baltimore. It was one place that was the epicenter, and it reached. God's word is far reaching. So what? We can't get in the four walls. That ain't got nothing to do with us speaking the word of God, because God said Elijah sent message. So God is calling me to be like Elijah and send message and send word out that we're shut in, but we're not shut out. God has called me to remind you that his word will never lose his power. God is calling me to remind you that he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. God is calling me to remind you that his word will not turn back void. So God really wants me to remind you to speak the word. Elton, a word. Elton. The word is still going on to Elton. And let me tell you about Elton. There was a time when I couldn't get to my home church, and Elton became my home church. Yeah, I was in college and it was too far. I couldn't get a ride. But God knew way back then that I would need a church in Elton. Listen. I gotta get off this phone. I gotta get off. I gotta get off, right? But go to Proverbs, right? Let's go to Proverbs. And I'm going to leave you with this. Church family, listen. If you don't get nothing else, what I got to say, we're shut in, but we're not shut out. We're shut in, not shut out. I'll say it again. We're shut in, but we're not shut out. So don't let nobody tell you because the church building is shut that God don't have no power. I gave you two passages in the Old Testament and the New Testament where the man of God never met the person. Naaman had leprosy. This person had palsy. Not any moment did the man of God ever leave for healing to be ministered. This might be news to some of you. I never have to leave any place for you to be healed. You just got to believe that God is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. You got to believe that God's word is more powerful than any force that man could ever think of. So I'm going to leave you with this final verse, and I'm going to get off of here. Because that's what I need you to do. Proverbs 3. Verse number 4. So shall thy find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Verse number 5. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not to thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. I go to church because I need God to direct my path. And I'm gonna leave you with my illustration. Leave you with my illustration. Forgive me. A fool covers the gaps. A wise man fills the gap. A godly man closes the gaps. There are no gaps with God. Whatever you're lacking, let his shalom, his peace, nothing missing, nothing lacking, nothing broken, nothing out of place. I go to church to close the gaps. I go there to close the gaps. So this is Michael Gibson. That's why I go to church, to close the gaps. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all that tuned in. I would say that if this message blessed you, I ask that you share it out. And if you don't get anything out of this word that I spoke today, don't forget Psalms 103:20, that the angel hearken to hear the command of his words. So if you don't know how to pray, just get the word and begin to speak the word. Change it to put, the Lord is Michael's shepherd, and Michael shall not want. The Lord is Melissa's shepherd. Melissa shall not want. The Lord is Pam's shepherd, and Pam shall not want. Psalms 103:5. My youth is restored. So Pam's youth is restored like the eagles. Tanya's youth is restored like the eagles. Michael's youth is restored like the eagle. Thea's youth is restored like the eagle. Begin to change those minds and put your name in it. But you got to understand that you got to make this your habitation, your dwelling place, the place where you live. So now more than ever, you got to dwell in this word. You got to dwell in, you got to live in it. You can't speak about it, you got to be about it. But as I told you before, if God made the clouds his chariots and he walks on the wings of the wind, you don't think he can handle an infinitesimal virus? You really think he can't handle that? So what you need to ask yourself, is there anything too hard for God? And I guarantee you the answer is no. We serve an awesome God. And again, I pray that you got something out of this. Pray that you got something out of this. All right? Thank you for the time, Cousin Tanya. I thank you for engaging. I really do. I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate all your kind words. Melissa, I appreciate, what you do. Listen, we all got to work during this season. We all have a work. We all have a work. Get to your work. As long as you fulfilling God's purpose, that means his hands is on you. If his hand's on you, there's no devil in hell that can pluck you out of his hand. So if his hand's on you, there is no sickness that can stop you from fulfilling the purpose for your life. There is no disease that can stop you from fulfilling the purpose that God has had on your life. So what you ought to do is find the purpose that God has for your life. When you begin to walk in the purpose that God has for your life, you'll have the ability to shake yourself and be able to just move. I just want to encourage you to move, okay? Move, do something. You can post it on your wall, or shut in or not shut out. Hashtag biblical poet, hashtag Michael Gibson. Elijah sent a messenger. Centurion says, speak the word. So that's in the old covenant, in the new covenant, which is all God's covenant. You don't need a building for healing. You just need to speak the word. That's the moral of the story. Speak the word. Be blessed. Thank you for your time.